Good track, right?
Nice.
It's been a long time.
All right, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the TripleF podcast. But before we get to my man to my left, your right, I wanted to give a shout out to my man Rashay out of Tampa, Florida, a local artist. That was his track, Just Be Quiet. If you're interested in hearing more about that, there's going to be a link down below. Now, to the man of the hour, Brandon, Superman Lewis. How you doing, my man?
Doing pretty well.
All right, so for anyone who doesn't know, Brandon Lewis, he's a local mixed martial artist, currently fighting under the Real Fighting Championships banner, and has an professional record of 3-0.
Correct.
At the tender age of 19, man.
Yeah.
All right, so for those who might not know you, just give your background story, how you got in the game, and kind of how you came up to where you are today.
So basically, I started training karate, traditional karate, when I was 10 years old, and I just was interested and fascinated with martial arts, so I wanted to expand and keep growing as a martial artist. So I went and I did Japanese jiu-jitsu, I did judo, I did Muay Thai, I did straight boxing for a year. I went into different styles to kind of be a complete martial artist, and I was always competitive. I always wanted to compete and things like that. I competed since the age of 10, jiu-jitsu and karate, and and I always wanted to fight MMA. I watched UFC growing up and stuff like that. And that's how I came about. I just became a complete martial artist. I started fighting at 15 years old in the amateurs. Unfortunately, in Florida, you have to be 18 to fight amateurs. So I had to travel to Virginia all the way to fight my amateur career. So I was 15 years old. I was it was 15 through 17. I was fighting adults. I was fighting 20, 22, 25. At one point, when I was 17, I fought a 35-year-old dude. So
that's literally twice your age.
Yeah, and that was actually my first knockout as well. So, so I just did what I had to do because I just loved fighting. And as soon as I turned 18, I did a couple quick 3 amateur fights down here, and then I turned pro right away under the RFC. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Makes me seem like I'm not doing shit with my life.
No, I just got lucky. I found it early. So
yeah. My story was kind of the same thing. I've been in the game for about 10 years now, but I'm an old head. The way that I got into mixed martial arts, Ultimate Fighter, you watched that?
Yep.
So it was the season finale. Basically the season finale, so it was Diego Sanchez, Kenny Florian,
the very first one, yeah.
The very first one.
Okay.
So that was the card that night. And before that, they had a season marathon of the entire first season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Mm-hmm. Started
Started watching it. I was like, I got to go to work in a couple of hours. Got into a couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I actually called out of work that day because I liked The Ultimate Fighter so much.
Jeez.
And then just kind of fell in love with the sport after that. And I think the Forrest Griffin-Stephan Bonner fight, that was that epic showdown.
It's still considered like one of the greatest fights.
It really is, and it's something that kind of took UFC and MMA into the mainstream. So.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great fight. One of my favorite fights, actually, is it passed recently, is Cub Swanson, Doo Ho Choi.
That was insane. Yeah, that was insane.
I think, that broke a record for me. That's the greatest fight of all time that I've seen, probably.
So, do you like the Rock'em Sock'em Robot fights more than the actual ground fights?
Nah. I like a little bit of both. I wouldn't say I'm pretty well-rounded, so I respect all martial arts, and I respect two people that go out there and bang, kind of the pride and the heart thing, but I also respect good technique, good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling, good striking, good technical striking. But, I appreciate someone that's like Anthony Pettis that's really super technical, flashy, stuff like that, but I also respect people like Robbie Lawler that just goes out and just throws down. So, both of them, you got to give them respect. And I wouldn't say, I think that fight that I was talking about had, Doo Ho Choi and Cub Swanson, they had, both. They both, pushed through that heart. And there was some really good techniques thrown in there, too. You had the Cub Swanson throwing the senchai kick, putting the hand down, cartwheel kick over there. So that was pretty cool. It was a great fight. But
all right, man. So I got to ask you, the nickname Superman, where'd that come from?
All right. So basically, when I first started training, this is back when I was in karate. So I got this nickname before I even started doing MMA. There was these drills where we'd line up people shoulder to shoulder on their knees. And we were practicing dive rolls and break falling, stuff like that.
Yep.
So, we kept them going until we couldn't do it anymore. But for me, I just kept on all right, keep going, add another one. And so when I go and dive roll, I jump up, hands out, and then dive roll. So one of my teammates oh, hey, you look like Superman. And they just started calling me Superman from now on. And I personally don't like it. I'm more of a Marvel than DC, but hey, I gotta stick with it. Once you get a nickname, you gotta stick with it. So.
All right, so you're one of those guys. They give you a nickname, you go with it.
Yeah, I gotta go with it. So. But if it was my choice, I'd do something ironic like the draft or something. But
Okay. All right. So before your professional bout, you had 8 amateur fights.
yes, yeah.
So that's a pretty extensive amateur fight. Was it simply the age thing as to why you didn't go pro?
Well, yeah, I was waiting for the age, but I also actually I wanted to go a little bit longer. My goal before turning pro was I always wanted 10 amateur fights. Like if I did 10 amateur fights and like I just all right, see how I did, see how my record lined up, see how my fights went, then proceed to decide whether to go pro or not.
Yep.
But I hit 8. I went 7-1 as an amateur, and my loss was all my 7 of my wins were by finish, and only my 1 loss was by decision. And especially by the time I got down here in Florida, I just fought the top guys like right away,
Yep.
and like nobody else wanted to fight after that. So, and even the guy that I fought back in the amateurs that I lost to, he's still amateur, just like sticking there. He doesn't want to turn pro or something, but like nobody else is like willing to step up in the amateur. So I'm like, all right, I might as well get paid for what I do.
Yeah, definitely. So how'd you take that first loss? I know some people, they'll kind of go in a cave for a week, kind of mellow in their sorrow, come out. And then some people might, they might be back in the gym that night, lifting weights or doing what they have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I took it really, really rough because...
How old were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 17. I took my first loss. It was a full like three 5-minute rounds. That's like the most you could do for an amateur.
Yep.
Is 3 5-minute rounds, and it was a war. Like it was a good fight. I definitely knew I lost. It wasn't like a controversial thing. I didn't get destroyed, but yeah, I definitely didn't do what I needed to do. And I felt like crap. Obviously, the guy that I was going against, he was very respectful. It wasn't like something against him or anything. It was more of a personal thing.
Yep.
And dude, I'm gonna be honest. I cried. Like I was terrible. I was like all messed up in the head. And I suffered losses in jiu-jitsu plenty of times and stuff like that growing up. But my first MMA loss, because that's what I want to do with my career, is MMA. That was heartbreaking. I forgot, but it wasn't too long. I had some injuries and stuff like that, so I had to take some time off just because of the injuries heal. But I think I wanted to get back in there right away just because, like, all right, this is not it for me. I'm not going to lose one amateur fight and be done. So, yeah, I got back into it right away and stayed undefeated since. So,
hey, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, right? Yeah. Especially that professional record looks a little.
Yeah, the pro record. The pro record. That's the one that really counts. So. But.
All right. So when you originally started out, you were 125, right?
Yeah, 125. Well, actually, my first amateur fight was at like a catch weight at like either 115 or 120 because I was so young.
All right. And what are you at now? 135, right?
My next fight's gonna be scheduled for 135. We're still, because I'm still young and I'm still probably growing. Yep. Maybe not height, wide. I don't know. I've been staying 5'4" for a while, but yeah. I think I got to figure out a couple more things. Also, like the biggest tough part about like weight cuts is getting the proper diet and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I got the key and the game plan of what I need to do when it comes to diet wise. It's just like the finances and the resources, all that kind of stuff. Yep. Unfortunately, in America, the healthy food is expensive.
Yes.
So that's the issue. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna, just to play safe, I'm gonna go fight my next fight at 135 just to make sure there's no issues with the weight cut or any problems on the other side. And then after that, I want to maintain my weight pretty low, and I want to try to do it one more time at 125. And if I can't make it, I'll just stick to 135.
So walk around weight, what's that typically at?
Usually, like, it's been steadily increasing as I've been getting older. Yep. So right now I'm at like 160.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's pretty serious.
Yeah, it's a big cut. I've always had a tough time cutting weight, but early on I probably could have done it really well if I just had the information. Now I have the information, but now I'm growing, so I'm in a really tough spot when it comes to the weight class thing. But I'll for sure easily make 135. No doubt about that. So yeah, that'd be good.
So what do you think about weight cutting? That's a real popular topic in mixed martial arts today. Do you think if there were regulations to kind of prevent guys from dropping down a little bit too low, do you think
I hate weight cuts. It's terrible and it's unhealthy. Like people have died cutting weight. Like it's actually I've had a teammate, an affiliate from my Army New school that he died cutting weight. And I didn't personally know him. He was like a Army New or Nova Now affiliate. Yep. But yeah, he died cutting weight, and like I just seen like a couple guys that like they were dying cutting weight, and just me knowing the feeling of like how I cut weight, especially day of weigh-ins when I'm like dizzy, I can't walk right, like my mind's like not. I'm like the whole camp, like it's bad when you're not even focusing on the fight, you're focusing on the weight cut. Yep. And I think if Like when I compete in jiu-jitsu, sometimes like I'll compete in IBJJF. They do same day weigh-ins. I feel that's how MMA should be. Same day weigh-ins. You guys both show up at the same weight. You guys are fighting at the same weight. You know, not okay. Well, this guy he walks around at like 138. You know, and he fights at 125. But this guy is jacked like 155, and he's able to cut down to 125. And they go fight on the same day, and you know, there's a big weight difference. Now, you know, some people, like I said before, like me early on, I didn't have the knowledge of how to properly cut weight and stuff like that, so that's even more dangerous. And unfortunately, a lot of guys, especially the amateurs getting into this, they don't have the proper, like, info, they don't have the knowledge, and they don't have the resources, they don't have the finances to do it. So they're doing it dangerously. They're starving themselves, they're doing as much dehydration as possible, and that's going to, you know, that's really bad health effects, especially even long-term, if you're doing, like, diuretics or, like, laxatives and stuff like that. Like, all that kind of stuff. Just that little extra, like, half a pound or whatever just to make weight is doing some damage to your body. So, I'm totally against weight cutting, but it's something that I have to do, and you know, I love MMA, and that's a part of it, so that's what I got to deal with.
Because now it's not even so much as a competitive advantage as it is something that you need to do just to be on par with the person that you're going against.
If I, like right now I'm 160, let's just say I only cut 5 pounds and I fought at 155. Yep. People that fight at 155 are walking around at like 180 something.
Yep.
So a guy that's like fully just like on the day of the fight, 180, let's just say 180, guys is just jacked. Yeah, maybe a little bit faster, but just the size difference. I don't care. That's one thing in martial arts too. Like people are controversial about, like, oh, size doesn't matter. Like, you know, it's technique. It does.
At some point, it does.
Yeah. So there's a certain extent when technique, and especially when you're fighting the professionals or even higher in the higher level, like at UFC and stuff like that. Like when this technique and the skill is so close, any little advantage matters. So yeah. Unfortunately, it's just what you gotta do. You gotta cut the weight. You gotta fight with people that are your actual weight. You know, it sucks because two people, they're over here, they're gonna kill themselves, and the next day they're back here. Like, okay, we just went through all that for nothing. So
I respect you, man. I think my last grappling tournament, you know, walk around was about 170, and about 3-4 weeks out, started dropping down to 155. And, you know, just that 15-pound difference. You're sitting there laughing right now, but for me, it felt like straight up death. Just the diet, you know, and you're working out, you're dizzy, the empty stomach. But I mean, I guess that is the good thing about grappling tournaments. Like immediately afterwards, you know, I think I downed like a box of Cheerios and a protein bar and a protein shake.
Well, what kind of tournament was it? Was it like a Naga, Copa?
Copa.
It was a Copa, okay.
Yep.
So they do the day before weigh-ins, right? Or was it the same?
We were morning of.
Oh, you guys did morning of?
Yeah, so I think they opened up weigh-ins, I think it was like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And then my division didn't even start competing until probably like 3:30 that day.
No, usually if I ever do competitions where it's the same day, I don't cut weight at all. I lean out, like I just start eating healthy, but I don't do any dehydration, no starvation, nothing like that, because I'm sure you felt like crap during your tournament a little bit.
I did.
Yeah. So, exactly. Yeah, I did that one time for Florida States, and I would, like my first match, I was like, what am I doing?
It was just that coupled with like the adrenaline dump, like when you initially start out, and then I was just sitting there, like guy was literally mounted on top of me, and I was just like, I have no energy to do anything right now.
Exactly. Yeah, you probably didn't know whether it was a weight cut or like just the you know, one of your first times competing or whatever, you know.
It was both. I was rolling with it.
Yeah. So hey, it happens.
All right. So career-wise, are you the type of person you say I'm going to be here at the end of this particular year, or do you literally take it fight by fight?
I used to be, like, my goal, I saw that little, you know, when Sage Northcutt was first coming out, he got signed to the UFC at the age of 20, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I'm 20, I want to be in the UFC. And I'm like, that's what's going to happen. Now I start to realize, like, it's better off, and like my coaches told me this too, it's better off to take it fight by fight. Just take I'm really young. There's no need to rush me, you know, going big in the UFC and stuff like that right now. Yeah. I should just take my time, still learn, get better every fight and things like that until, you know, I'm fully ready. There's no rush. Obviously, there's a little bit of a thing when it comes to like the marketing aspect. That's why Sage Northcutt was a big thing. He was just such a young guy in the UFC, gave him a little bit more of an edge and a bigger payday. But you know, I'd rather feel, you know, look where he's at now. He lost his last two fights, or he lost his last fight. He lost
his last 2 fights.
His last 2 fights?
Yeah,
okay.
Subs both of them. And he was a guy, like, coming up, you know, like, I watched the independent leagues and whatnot, and I actually heard of Sage Northcutt before he got into the UFC.
Nice. Yeah, he was fighting under the LFA, I think. Yeah.
Yes, and just watching him fight, it's like, okay, this is a flashy style. You know, he's a good-looking kid, obviously jacked and whatnot. And then UFC, you know, they kind of throw him to the fire. Okay, you can hang with these guys, and then you saw what happened. It was basic submissions. What was Mickey Gall? Was that a head and arm?
No, he did a rear naked choke. The one before that, I forgot, was Cody something. He arm triangled him from half guard, like from the wrong side, and he said he was like strip throat or something like that. But don't take the fight if you have strip throat or if it's gonna affect your game, you know.
Yeah, and there's some kind of guys like, you know, he did fight Mickey Gall. You know, Mickey Gall's actually done something a little bit after that. So it's weird how the UFC is going to do this going forward. You know, like the young guys can just come in, run their mouth, and get those high-profile fights. It's going to be interesting to see how they go forward with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall's like what? He's only 5-0 right now.
Yep.
He was 3-0 going into the UFC's pro debut. I mean, his UFC debut was against CM Punk. Obviously, another W. And then, he goes against Sage Northcutt. I think that was a good fight. Like, Mickey Gall, he wasn't really, like, you know, he had a similar record to Sage. Sage, I forgot, Sage is like, I don't know what his record is. It's like 6-2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And Mickey Gall's like 5-0 now. So that was a good matchup, I believe. But, like, it's kind of like a publicity little, fight.
I mean, do you like that? That's something that, you know, me watching UFC for like the past decade, that really didn't happen with the call-outs after the fights. And now it seems like literally every fight or on social media, you know, you have the Twitter feuds, whatever they are. I mean, is that something that...
Well, Conor McGregor, he's like shaped the game kind of like that when it comes to that. And
it's an understatement.
Yeah. So, everyone's kind of doing the Conor thing and stuff like that. One person that I actually like look up to, I've always looked up to, was George St. Pierre. And he actually made a lot of money. He had a lot of good publicity when he was UFC champion and coming up. And that's kind of the route that I want to go. I don't want to be like, fuck you, this and that, and like just start, you know, calling out people. You know, I could understand calling out somebody like in a respectful manner. I'd be like, hey, like, I fought this guy, I think I deserve a shot at this guy kind of thing.
Yep.
Not like, screw you guys, I want to fight this motherfucker, you know. So I'm not like that, you know. I feel like it gets things done. It's good for the... I'd say sometimes it's not fair for the actual fighters that have put in the work, but they just don't call people out and they don't do all the, you know, drama stuff to get their fights going. And unfortunately, you know, the sport doesn't really care. UFC doesn't really care. They're a business. You got to understand that. And unfortunately, if you want to be at a certain spot, you're gonna have to do what you're gonna have to do. Yeah. I'm gonna do what I have to do, but I'm not gonna do it the route that, you know, Conor has done, stuff like that. I respect Conor, I like Conor and everything like that. That's not my route. And so some people, I think they have to figure out just how to get what they want with the sport, you know.
And I think looking at this weekend's card, it has like a prime example of that. You know, Damian Maia, he was a guy who, you know, he's kind of paid his dues for an extended period of time. And then Jorge Masvidal, he kind of came up, and, you know, not a lot of people knew about Masvidal until he started calling people out.
Yeah.
And you kind of saw that with the Cerrone fight, the back talk going with them. And Masvidal, I mean, granted, he's a very good fighter, but is he that potential guy who could fight for a championship? Not sure at this level. But it's just weird trying to see the two different elements of a guy who's, you know, paid his dues, been quiet this entire time, and is still kind of getting, you know, swept under the rug in regards to title shots. Yeah. And then Masvidal is just kind of this fast riser.
Well, which division is it?
That's
Is it 170?
Yeah.
170. So they're looking at Woodley. Yeah, I don't actually. I could see Masvidal and Woodley being a good fight. It's just Woodley's got that one hit, you know, kind of power. But Masvidal, he comes forward, and I've seen, like, I noticed with Woodley, with his fights with Thompson, he was a little like hesitant. Like, he was almost, I wouldn't say scared of getting hit, but sometimes he was respecting him too much. And I think Masvidal, if he puts the pressure on, he does have a chance against Woodley. But Woodley, like, at the end of both fights, he touches him once and he starts dying right away. So
it's like he saved everything for the fifth round of his fights. But I think with Wonder Boy, that was kind of a classic example of this guy can put me out with one shot.
Yeah,
I'm going to be as careful as I possibly can in retaining this title. Mm-hmm. And like, if that meant, you know, having a boring 4 first rounds and then just going for it all in 5th round.
Yeah,
maybe that was his game plan going in.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand, like, people say George St. Pierre was boring. I don't really think so. He mixed up, he wrestled, he did a bunch of different things. Like, if he wouldn't just hold people down, he would, like, ground and pound everything.
Yep.
But I can understand if you know, you're at that level. It's like the same thing with boxing with Floyd Mayweather. Everyone was saying, oh, like, I got the blueprint to beat Floyd Mayweather. You know exactly what he's gonna do, but they didn't imply it's the contender It's their job to go and take that title. It doesn't matter. The champion, they have their set game plan, and you already know what they're going to do. If they're going to run away or they're going to be evasive or whatever, they're going to be a little conservative or whatever their game plan is your job as a contender going for that to be able to figure that out and overcome it. So
Definitely.
you got to respect both sides of it, you know.
All right, you finally brought his name out, so I'm going to ask you the question that's probably the most popular question in MMA right now. Do you think Floyd Conor actually happens?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen because there's too much money in it not to happen.
Yep.
I think it's going to, I don't know, I have no idea when. They're probably going to spend a little bit more time just like hyping it, building it up, getting the ball rolling. Yeah, I have no clue when it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. The result, I don't know. It's going to be a boxing match, so I'm going to go with Floyd. But like people are saying, oh, Conor has that one hit thing. You got to think Floyd's going against those. He's always going against guys with power and those boxers, stuff like that. So but you never know. One punch. There's nothing definite in the sport of MMA or boxing. One punch could put it all away. And there's nothing you could do to guarantee a win. You can only train hard to, increase the chances of you winning. There's nothing guaranteed. So.
And it would be always interesting to see what size gloves they actually use too. If that's actually going to be in the rules or a stipulation or whatnot. Obviously, something lower that'd be in Conor's favor.
Yeah.
If it's normal standard boxing gloves, I think they would use 10 ounces.
The box, I think they're a lighter weight. I think it's 8. 8s. I think,
Okay.
and I think the heavier it's like 10s.
Okay.
So. Yeah, for professional. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you, whoever's listening to this or whatever. Just, yeah, I'm not sure the exact. I did amateur boxing, a little bit when I was like 13 and stuff like that. But when I was informed, I think the pros, their ounce gloves are like 8s and 10s. Yep. But I may be wrong.
So you actually got into a very, very young age. Like, did you always know? It's kind of weird. Like guys from my generation, even though we're not that much different in age. They start out, maybe they were wrestlers or boxers, and then they kind of evolve into mixed martial artists. Mm-hmm. When you started out, was that something that you knew kind of going in that, all right, I'm going to be a mixed martial artist, I'm going to try to get all this to gel together now, as opposed to being that guy who's a wrestler who's converted into a striker? Did you know going forward that this is kind of what you wanted to do, so I'm going to take full advantage when I'm still at a young age?
I didn't quite know I wanted to be like a UFC fighter. I watched a lot of like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and stuff like that. So I kind of like that traditional like that karate, stuff like that. And so that's why I started off with karate first, and then like I was just interested by the other martial arts, and at the same time, like I wasn't really considering I want to fight MMA like specifically. I just love to train. Like I think that's the first thing that you have to like if someone's looking to get in this, I wouldn't say you don't have a chance if, you just want to fight, but like you gotta love the art. You gotta love the sport. Like, you gotta love to train it first. But yeah, I mean, I was a karate fighter and I transitioned into a complete mixed martial artist. So, it was weird, especially the transition from karate to boxing.
It was stance-wise.
Yeah, it was terrible. I was always switching my stances. I would want to throw a kick. I had no head movement. I had no hands at all. Yeah, my footwork was terrible. So yeah, everything the transition was terrible. But once I had it down, I was a little bit more. Step by step, I was a little bit more of a complete fighter. So, but now I could pretty much say I think I am a pretty well-rounded fighter overall. Right now I'm training like striking from MMA with Coach Daniel at Def 4. I'm training wrestling over at Def 4 with Devin Acosta. I'm training jiu-jitsu under Hobson Moore. He's an 8-time world champion. I'm also doing a little bit with Tony Way at Gracie Palm Harbor. Just a little bit of no-gi. He's giving me more of the leg lock inside of it and stuff like that and some basics when it comes to that. Because that's a whole different game, too, in jiu-jitsu. The whole, you got the traditional, like, gi, the IBJF, like, no heel hooks and stuff like that. And then you got, like, the EBI stuff, like heel hooks, toe holds, ripping all the LCLs, ACL, all that kind of stuff. So there's two different sides to everything. There's a sport jiu-jitsu. Like I say, with MMA, like, there's 3 types of different jiu-jitsu. There's gi jiu-jitsu, no gi jiu-jitsu, and MMA jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And I was doing, like, kind of sport jiu-jitsu and MMA, and, like, I learned really quick that some things that you can do in sport jiu-jitsu does not work in MMA because I invert for something and then I'm just getting my face pounded. So
yes, that was my biggest problem making the transition from MMA just to like the standard jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Just getting into my mindset that you know, in regular jiu-jitsu, we're not going to have to worry about getting punched, elbowed in the face. It's okay to be in that position in regular jiu-jitsu. And it's you've just been drilling it through your mind for so long. Okay, danger, danger, danger here. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm actually in an alright position. I can, you know, try to shrimp out of this and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Just and some people they can't flip the switch. I'm really good at flipping the switch between like differentiating between like okay, like I train like gi jiu-jitsu, no gi jiu-jitsu. Like today I'm doing no gi jiu-jitsu. No. Tomorrow I'm doing gi jiu-jitsu. Like I have to be able to flip it. When I get closer to my fight camps, I do a little bit more no gi, and I try to implement my MMA. Like I don't really I just think, okay, I'm not going to be on my back. If I end up on my back, I'm going to hurry up, get up, stay on top. I do some different, like, trapping positions that would be good for ground and pound, but I'm also not that guy that's, like, going to train jiu-jitsu and also, like, throw, like simulated strikes. Yeah. I'm not that guy, so I hate those guys sometimes. But you got to do what you got to do, so.
What's your actual preference, no-gi or gi?
I honestly, I like them all. I wouldn't know. Right now, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on no-gi just for the sake of...
It's more applicable to MMA.
To MMA, yeah. But I've trained... all my jiu-jitsu training is 90% has been gi. So I've started off with gi jiu-jitsu, and I rarely do gi, no gi. But I only do it leading up to my fights and stuff like that. I like both of them, but they're two totally different games. I play way totally different games in both of those scenarios. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, anything I've ever competed in was always no gi. So, like, typically in tournaments, you might have the gi go before you. So I'm just watching these guys with the collar chokes. And I'm just kind of sitting back, and I'm like, man, I would get so pissed off if this was me right now getting choked.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my teammates, I train with him in no-gi jiu-jitsu, and he also helps with my strength and conditioning. But we call him No-gi Drew. And the reason why I call him No-gi Drew is because he only does no-gi. He's tried to do gi at one point. This is back, I'll just say, about 6 years ago. He competed in gi for the first time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his choice. His coach was like, hey, like, you know, go ahead, just throw on the gi, try it out. And he was like, what the hell? Like, yeah, I'm terrible. I had to tie his belt for him because he didn't know how to tie his belt. And he went in there and got, like, cross-collar choked in, like, 10 seconds. And he's like, well, never again. So, some people have a huge preference, but I respect and I love it all. But, obviously, leading up to my fights, I got to stick with no-gi. So.
All right, so we touched on Conor and Floyd a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. If you could see any super fight happen right now, what would it be?
Any super fight, huh?
We can even do cross promotions if you want. If you want to see a guy from Bellator fight UFC, go with it.
I want to see... What weight class is Venom Page?
He is 170, right?
170? Okay. Actually, no. John Jones would be too big for him. If they're a little bit closer in weight, I would like to see John Jones and Michael Venom Page.
That would be crazy.
Well, actually, but not in MMA, just in striking.
Just in striking?
Because I think John Jones will just out-wrestle him and just submit him in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, that is true.
So, but if it was like just a striking match between John Jones and Michael Venom Page.
How about Wonder Boy versus Venom Page?
They have two different styles. Like, I know Venom Page has that traditional martial arts, but Thompson is very karate. He's very point sparring karate. He throws that lead kick. Venom Page is a little bit more diverse when it comes to some of his strikes. But no, I mean, that'd be tough. I think that'd be stalemating for a little bit, because if you take two high-level strikers, especially when they come from that traditional background, they kind of cancel each other out. Yeah. And that's with anything. If you see high-level jiu-jitsu, you watch world championships in gi, and you're like, what the heck, this is boring. They're just sitting there. It's 2 points. That's it. Like, no, but I'm trying to think. I would like to see probably any fight with Robbie Lawler.
Okay.
I probably would pay for like a Robbie Lawler Condit 2 again. Or
There's one that pops into my mind just because it ended the way it did last time.
Jose Aldo and Conor?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, but I'm like, that fight could possibly happen, but I don't think Conor can make 145 again. So I
think maybe Aldo could come up to 155.
I've heard Jose Aldo's a big 45er, but I know Conor's. I don't think he'd make 45 anymore.
No, probably not. Because I think he walks around what? He's 180.
Yeah, probably 180
high
now.
170s. He's a guy build wise, you know. He's got like a back and shoulders thing.
Yeah, especially when he went up to fight Nate. Like
you saw the difference just from the weigh-in pictures. You know,
he
like what he was
bulked
weighing
up.
at 145 and then 170, and I mean, obviously you're gonna look better at 170, but I think like 155, that's probably gonna be.
155 is a good weight class for him. Yeah, I mean, I was super upset because I was at the point where I hated Connor.
Yeah,
I hated Connor. Like I hated Connor. Like leading up until I forgot what point, but I started understanding the reason why he was doing things. But I was like heartbroken. I remember I was watching.
So fast.
I was watching with my girlfriend. We're at a wing house, and it was up on the projector. And we're like, all right, like I'm like sitting forward, I'm pumped, and then I just see him like fall and then just like die. I'm like, what happened? Did he trip? I didn't even see the left hook that Connor threw, and then I saw the replay. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I was so upset, but
I'm pretty sure that fight has to happen again.
I think a lot of people are demanding that. I think that would be a good money fight, but it'll probably be on Connor's time, not on Aldo's time. How old's Aldo right now? Is he getting there?
He's late 30s, right?
Is he?
30s.
Yeah, he might be slow. He's been in the game for a long time, and like having a bunch of tough fights. Like he's had some really, really tough fights, and that wear and tears on you for a while. So we'll see where he's at, but hopefully it could be soon because Jose Aldo might be slowly coming out of the game a little bit.
Yep, and I think with him, he was around for so long, being so dominant before the UFC kind of put that emphasis on the lighter weight classes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he comes to the UFC, it's like, okay, it's kind of like Mighty Mouse now.
Yeah.
Like if you talk to just the casual MMA fan, talk about best fighters, Mighty Mouse may be mentioned.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, like if you're looking at the most dominant champions right now, you can't really argue that it's anyone other than him in the UFC.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, Mighty Mouse is by far. He's like the complete fighter. He submitted the jiu-jitsu guy his last fight. He beat him up. He wrestled him. He took him down and tapped him out. Like the guy is a complete animal. He's always got the perfect game plan. He's always prepared physically, mentally. I think his mental. That's the one thing that's a huge thing too in the MMA game is like the mental preparation. That's one thing Connor's really good at. Yep. But Mighty Mouse, Johanna, I don't even know how to pronounce her last name. Young Chick. That chick, yeah. She's she's got that mindset too. Like those people. But yeah, Mighty Mouse, he's insane. I wonder even who's next for him.
Maybe he goes up. Dominic Cruz, maybe.
Well, he's got to do it one more time to defend to break the record.
Yeah.
But I'm saying who's he gonna fight to break that record?
I mean, I don't think at this point it really matters. Like that fight with Tim Elliott, granted it was extremely entertaining, but like even when Elliott had that guillotine locked up, you're like pretty sure DJ is still gonna get out of this somehow,
Yeah.
And like that was the most he's been tested so far, like as a champion, and it's just extremely weird coming off that. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
They throw a jiu-jitsu guy at him.
Tapped him out. Jeez, yeah. I have no clue who's next for him. But I think after that, then the next thing would be bumping up to do like a super fight against whoever the champ at that point. I think Cody's going to remain champ for a little bit.
You think so?
Yeah.
You like his power?
Huh? Yeah. You gotta, I became a fan when he knocked out my boy, Thomas Almeida.
Yeah.
I thought Almeida was going to make it to the top. And then Cody just like shut him down. Oh no.
I think do you think Cruz was still 100% when he went up against Cody that fight?
Yeah, yeah. I just think it was like, I mean, Cruz even explained it in the post-fight interview. He was saying he just played his game. He pulled him in.
Yep.
Usually Cruz does that to everybody. He pulls them into his game. He fires off. He changes angles and stuff like that. And that's what Cody was exactly doing to Cruz. Cruz got Cruz, So, but no, I think Cruz was on point in that fight. He just didn't expect. He expected Cody to come out like he always does, just hard strikes and stuff like that.
That's kind of how I thought going in. I was like, okay, Cody could get this round 1 or 2, and then after that, Cruz definitely has 3, 4, and 5. That's just his style.
Yeah, I thought the fight was gonna go. I didn't know who was gonna win that fight. I thought it was either Cody was gonna be able to rush him and be quick enough to be able to catch his timing with Cruz's movement,
yep.
Or Cruz was going to be able to, go all 5 rounds and, get the decision. But no, it was like the complete opposite of how I thought, and Cody made him look like a fool. He completely destroyed him that whole fight.
And it's going to be interesting to see how he matches up with Dillashaw, just because Dillashaw and Cruz, Dillashaw likes pulling people into his game, and then
Yeah.
Kind of being reactive to that.
I don't know. I think I'm still taking Cody. I think Dillashaw has lately he's been trying to like almost imitate Cruz's game, but he's like the Walmart brand of Cruz. You know, he's not quite there yet. So, yeah. I see Cody winning that fight against TJ.
All right. So something else we can touch on: Bellator
Mm-hmm.
making a lot of moves. So before Bellator would always get the washed-up UFC guys, the Ken Shamrocks,
Yeah.
Rampage Jacksons, and whatnot, and now they're actually starting to bring over some talent. Ryan Bader, Larkin, Rory.
Yep.
So what do you think about those moves? Do you think that Bellator could potentially get on the same level roster-wise as the UFC in maybe 3-5 years if they keep overpaying these guys?
Yeah, eventually. They signed that one chick, I forgot who was, Valentina, to 125,
Yep.
I think, over there.
Yep.
The end of the day, they're paying better, and fighters want what they deserve when they fight. And, I mean, if guys that are, making their way up in the UFC, and they're getting kind of like in the back of the line to guys that are just like, hey, screw you, and they're getting their way to the title shot that way, and they're not getting paid enough, the whole Reebok deal, like all that kind of stuff, it makes people want to shift over more towards Bellator rather than just stick in the UFC.
Yep.
UFC does obviously have more publicity and things like that, but with all that publicity, you can't really do anything with sponsorship deals if Reebok's like taking over. So, yeah, I mean, they may not be getting the credibility and the publicity they would get in the UFC, but they're getting paid more, and who they don't really need the fame or anything. They just if they're doing what they love to do and they're getting paid well for it enough to make a living, like that's good enough for me. That's good enough for them, So I don't need publicity. I just want to live comfortably and do what I like to do.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with Bellator too, like instantly why I was attracted to Bellator, like if it was DVR or something, it's got that more Amy feel to it. You might have guys that are a little bit more raw than the UFC because, like, UFC, that kind of used to be rock'em sock'em robots. People developed technique. Things got a little bit more technique-based. And then in Bellator, they're still coming out throwing haymakers the entire time. Like, I thought that was really cool, especially with their undercards and things that, like their main card guys, if you take, like, King Mo, if you take a guy like Venom Page, they're going to have styles that actually work in the UFC. They're going to make entertaining fights.
Yeah.
But you have those young guys that are coming out, and they're still trying to make a name for themselves and trying to put on a show.
It's always interesting. Like, that's why sometimes I like watching the prelims of UFC than I do, like, the main card because, like, they're guys trying to make a name for themselves. And, Bellator, like, I'm pretty sure they give pretty good bonuses to their guys that win. Yep. With knockouts and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you got guys that are, like you said, trying to make a name for themselves and things like that. Like good fighters, King Mo, Venom Page. I'm not too familiar with that many of the fighters. Like, I know Benson Henderson signed with them, Roy McDonald. Like those guys. They're real talent that's in Bellator. And I think, the more guys that are shifting over, it's like the more, how to say, it's a little bit easier for even more guys to come over to Bellator. Yeah. And I'm sure with the bigger names coming over too, I mean, not the bigger names as in like the freak shows, like, like the Shamrock and Hoist Gracie 5 or whatever number they fought. I'm not talking about bigger names like that. I'm talking about actual real bigger names that are, that have talent, like put on really good fights and things like that. I'm not saying Ken Shamrock and Hoist Gracie don't have talent. I'm just saying they're 50.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
I think sometimes it was weird to put their marketing dollars into, a Tito Ortiz versus Chael Sonnen as opposed to, one of their homegrown guys, like maybe Michael Chandler against somebody. If they brought somebody over to UFC, and they say, I think Michael Chandler, if he goes to the UFC, do you think he's top 5 in the division?
I'm not too familiar with him. I'm not too familiar with him. What division is he in?
So Michael Chandler is 155.
155. Okay. Yeah, I'm not too familiar. Wait, did he fight Benson?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think he would at least be top 10. Yeah, I've seen him fight.
Even like a King Mo. I mean, would you agree that he's going to be top 5 if he goes over to 205?
I wouldn't say top 5.
Top
well, actually,
top 10.
No. Actually, maybe even top 5 because the 205 division is starting to thin out a little bit. So what do they got in 205 now? They got obviously Cormier's the champ. They got Will Johnson retired.
Yeah, which was extremely awkward.
Yeah.
I don't think we've heard anything about that afterwards, right? He said he had a business opportunity, and then it was like kind of he fell off the face of the planet.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, good for him if he's happy doing what he wants to do. But who else is at 205 now? Like who's the actual like UFC's rankings of Let's look this up.
Yeah, let's actually pull it up.
The UFC's 205 rankings.
And Anthony Johnson, that was one guy when I instantly think of him, how much he actually...
Just go on the UFC website. Just take out...
Oh, yeah, actually. Like, remember when Anthony Johnson used to fight at 170?
Yeah, that was...
And then somehow he bounced all the way up to 205. You could see it literally just
Well,
in his
then
face.
he was out for a while because he got, like, hurt cutting weight. And then he just moved up to 205.
All right. So, here we go. Let's filter.
All right. So, men's light heavyweight. It's right there.
All right. So, we got Cormier.
Is this the rankings? Or?
What are you doing, UFC?
If this is the rankings, I don't know any of these guys.
No, this definitely is not the rankings. We can just kind of go down the list, though.
CB Dalloway, Gustafson.
Yeah, Gustafson. Isn't
Johnson's
there a guy
out.
who's contemplating retirement after every fight, though?
Who, Gustafson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dalloway, I didn't even know that he was 205.
I mean, John Jones is coming back, but, you know, he has been, besides that.
Have Jimmy
So, yeah, I
Manuwa.
think King Mo could definitely be top 5, because, sure. I remember I saw, like, Shogun and Glover Teixeira were in the top 10. Like,
Yeah.
Shogun was, like, number, 4 or 5 or something like that.
And those
like-
are guys that have just been in the game so long. What happens if they become championship? You know, will they even be able to
That's
defend the
like
title?
that's like a Bisbing. Like Bisbing, like I don't understand. Like I would have never thought that Bisbing would be able to get that.
For the longest time, you kind of thought as Bisping is like that gatekeeper. It was
Yeah.
that guy with the new talent. Okay, you beat Bisping, now you're in the top 10 discussion.
Yeah,
Or
same
top 5
thing was like
discussion.
Uriah Faber.
And then he actually comes out and wins the damn title.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, I know. But like when John Jones won that belt, he had a stacked 205 division. Like,
Yes.
That was one of the scariest divisions at his time.
Yep.
Right now, the 205 division is not. Yeah, it's not anything right now.
So what do you think happens with John Jones? I mean, if you were
Is-
talking about
is-
the mental game earlier, do
Yeah.
you think if he comes back, he can go back to what he was mentally when he was a champion, when he was kind of focused in? Well, he might not even have been focused in hindsight.
Yeah, I mean John Jones, he's a different animal. He's like, how many people do you know could like just train for 3 years and like
Yep.
become a UFC champion?
Yep.
Yeah, he just has that natural ability that like he wasn't even doing jiu-jitsu and he submitted black belts. Like
Did you
You
see
never-
the
you never
grappling
hear
match against Dan Henderson?
oh, I didn't even see it. I just knew what the result was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, all right, like Dan Henderson, how old is he now?
Yeah.
He's almost 50.
I don't know.
Yeah, and you got John Jones, who's just like an athletic freak. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. No, John Jones, he submitted Vitor. He submitted a lot of other high level jiu-jitsu guys, and you didn't even know jiu-jitsu.
And he has that crazy body build too.
Yeah, obviously the long reach and stuff like that. Obviously, that's a big factor of it too. I think he comes back. I think I could pretty much guarantee he could beat Cormier. But Cormier, however you pronounce it. But I guess he wants to take on Jones when he first comes back. John wants a warm-up fight before he goes and fights Cormier. And but I think Cormier wants to hop on that opportunity, but like, okay, let me take John when he has that little ring rust and
Yep.
he's not fully prepared. And I think that's Cormier's only chance of actually beating John. Because if John Jones in his prime, or John Jones like when he's ready, I don't see anyone. I literally don't see anyone defeating him. So
Yeah, and I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast, like now he's kind of fallen in love with jiu-jitsu. And I
Oh.
know for most mixed martial artists, I don't know how it was with you, but,
Mhm.
you know, when I first got into the game, jiu-jitsu was kind of something, it felt more like a chore than an actual passion of mine.
Mhm.
And, you know, maybe John Jones was in that same boat, and then his time away from the sport, he's like, you know what, I've got the body, I've got the talent, the athleticism, let's
Mhm.
actually fall in love with jiu-jitsu and see where this takes me.
yeah,
And, you know, if John Jones comes back, you know, he's already submitting high-caliber guys. Imagine if, you
gosh.
know, he's actually classically trained, more technical when he comes back. I
Screw
mean,
that.
how do you beat that guy?
Because he was the first person to take down Cormier, and he was an Olympic wrestler.
Yep.
And he like did it like oh nice, you're an Olympic wrestler, let me just take you down, no problem. Like if he could do stuff like that to guys of that caliber, and he actually gets like really good and really technical at jiu-jitsu, like I just feel that alone, like his striking is like insane, crazy. Like now adding that extra to his game, like he's like unstoppable. I mean he's already pretty much unstoppable, but that's even scarier.
All right, man. So I think we are about to wrap things up. Want to give you a couple minutes. Any young mixed martial artists out there? I know it's the guys that are your age are a little bit younger. You're only 19.
Yeah.
Any advice for them going forward? I know it's tough. I know, we talked about weight cutting. We talked about fighting older, stronger guys.
Mm-hmm.
Anything from your personal journey that you think they could be benefited by?
Yeah, I get asked, this a little bit, quite a bit. Basically, a lot of the guys, they ask me, oh, like, do you already need experience? Like, what gym do I go to with this and that? Yeah. And I always tell guys, like, just find a local gym. Just, like, it could be, like, either kickboxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. Just find a local gym and, try it out. Try a couple different ones out and find a coach that's compatible with you. I may not be, like, a lot of good guys come from Team Alpha Male, but if I go over there, maybe it's just not a good match for me, and I won't make it as far as I would with my local team. Like my team, I love my team and everything like that. Like Connor, he came from a really small gym, and look where he's at now.
Yep.
So you don't always need a big camp. You don't need that previous experience. Just go in, love the sport how it is. Don't even think about fighting until your coach mentions it. Like, you could say, oh, hey, like, one day I want to fight, and just leave it at that, and let it sink in your coach's back of his mind. And one day, like, okay, do a jiu-jitsu tournament. Okay, you're doing good at that. Let's get you an amateur fight. And it snowballs. So basically, just start off, just join a martial arts gym, and train and love it. And then, go out there, try to compete a little bit, and start building it slowly. Don't try to be like, I've had guys, I used to own a gym for about 5 years, and I'd have guys come in, oh, I want to be a fighter, this and that, I want to fight, I heard there's an event coming up in like 2 months. I'm like, just get the fuck out of my gym. I don't take those guys, You just got to love the sport, and you just got to train, and let your coach make the decisions for you, basically. Your coach, as long as you trust them, you're compatible with him, or him or her, basically just let them, they have the experience, they have the knowledge to make those decisions for you.
Yep.
And, just train, have fun. That's basically what I did. And then I'm a fighter now, I guess, so that's what happens.
All right. Well, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
Brandon, Superman Lewis, you got to do any plugs, sponsors, Twitter, anything on social media?
Yeah, so I want to thank Live Property Investments. I want to thank Boost 365. I want to thank my teammates from Def War and RMNU, Hopsamora, Nations United. I want to thank a lot of you guys, my fans and supporters, stuff like that. And I want to thank this guy over here for letting me on his podcast. Thank you, man.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We're going to go out. Exit track is going to be Riche from Tampa, Florida with Just Be Quiet. Thanks, guys.
The grave and make me do whatever he bids. Is always supporting to God. I know what you did. Nothing can ever be here. I'm omniscient all of the time. So follow me as I follow G. S-U-S-O, yes. Oh, you'll scream S-O-S from death. And I say, thank you, God, I'm blessed. I follow Jesus Christ before leaving the lie. Cause even I have been deceived in trials of many of times. They say I should give up before even have tried. What should I do about it? Just be quiet. Yeah, just be quiet. Boy, just be quiet. I follow Jesus Christ before leaving the lie. Yeah, just be quiet. Boy, just